Hi there, Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video we are going to continue our look at painting Alpha Legion using TurboDork colors. In the previous video we had laid the TurboDork Twin Suns onto a black prime, and this time we are going to lay it on a white prime. Now this is recommended by TurboDork to get two different kinds of effects. We're going to continue to use Twin Suns. We're going to use a Patriot 105 from Badger, spraying it around 20 psi. And of course, this prime is a normal white prime from Stynylrez, applied by airbrush. Now, mind you, this does not have a gloss finish like the previous video, but the results are sort of similar, so it's actually not too bad. And as you can see, we just quickly work our way through the model, laying down the base coat. And you can notice right away from the previous example how much more of the blue tones show through as opposed to the previous example, which had more of a more the blue tones were in the shadows, whereas this is predominantly blue. Now we're going to give it a little bit of time to dry to see if that changes anything. Of course, we're going to jump over to the backpack as well, and that's just going to quickly get a base coat, and we're just going to pretty much work from it from that point forward. Now the backpack is done separately, but it is going to get painted in the exact same fashion as the rest of the model. Once it's dry, you can see the shine that actually has a bit more of a yellowy green tone to it. It actually is not as noticeable on this white base, but it is still there. To the eye, you can still see it, but it isn't quite as predominant as when it's on top of the black. We're using this Maladin. We're using this same highlight color we did in the previous example, and I'm basically going to follow along the edges and do an edge highlight on this and kind of help the overall aesthetic of Alpha Legion on this model. So this is going to get applied along the edges and high points and corners and all the things, basically like we would normally if we were working on Alpha Legion, and simply using opaque colors and going in with a light green on top of a blue. This is where we're just following that similar kind of theory as we work our way around the model. And here you can see I'm just simply going around and just basically outlining essentially. Now, when we're doing it in this fashion, we are not trying to disturb the color shifting properties of the paint. And again, it doesn't really show up on camera here all that well, but in person you can see the color shifting. You can see here, this is once I've done all the edges in that light green metallic. And just like before, we're going to use Phthalo Blue Green Shade from Golden High Flow. This is a transparency. We're going to add a drop of Liquitex Flow Aid just to help with the flow, and we're going to use a generous amount of water. And again, we are simply going to just aid this nice deep cyan color, and we're going to just basically follow along the bottom portions of the armor plate. So like on the breastplate, I follow along the trim along the lower portion just below the belt. I lay that in. At the knee joint, I lay it in, and basically it's just kind of helping create separation without going to any kind of really deep color. And again, it's just an aesthetics choice. I was just helping to build some of that deeper tones in those areas, because again, there isn't, when you lay these color shifts down, there isn't a lot of color depth, and I don't really recommend trying to come in and use like a color filter on top of any of these colors, or do a large amount of highlighting or anything like that, as you basically will just end up ruining the color shifting property of the paint itself. You want to preserve as much of that effect from the paint, that natural effect from the paint, and so that's the reason why you see me demonstrating it in this fashion, just because again, I don't want to disturb what the paint does, and that's the whole point of using a paint like this, is to get these really awesome effects. So with that all said and done, we're going to move into some black metal from scale 75, and we're just going to slap a little bit of this onto the palette, and we are just going to move around the model and just catch all the trim, kind of like what we did in the previous example, except with this I'm using a scale 75 paint rather than the Citadel paint, because rather than repeat myself too much, you can kind of get a sense of what these colors look like when using different paint lines and blah blah blah. So just very carefully, we're just working our way around and picking out all the details. Basically anything that's going to get metallic. So the top of his horns, the trim of the shoulder pad, the motor section of his chainsword, and all the usual little bits are going to get colored in, and basically just given a nice smooth even coat of this black metal. Now I really like this paint, and once you lay it on and once it's already starting to dry, you can see basically what it looks like is like lead belcher with that known oil, except it still has that nice lustrous metallic vibe to it, which I'm going to leave alone. So with this, we're going to continue on. We're going to use some Black Templar contrast. I could just as easily have used Abaddon Black thinned out and done the casing for the bolt pistol and the chainsword and the little pipings around the joints, the elbow joints and hip joints and all those areas. But I decided contrast is really fun, and it only takes 2 layers to get a nice solid even coat. And basically when you're using this, it does when you get close to some edges, it flows into the recesses, as well as providing a nice even base coat. You just give it a second to dry, and then you can lay another layer down, and it gives you a nice even opaque color on that surface. And of course it sits on top of the surface. Now mind you, this model has not been given any varnishes or glosses. Typically with metallics, I often will give them a gloss varnish just to bring that metallic shine out, but I have not done any of that, just because just give you guys an opportunity to see what this stuff looks like all on its lonesome. Heavy metal is next. This is a color close to Iron Breaker from Citadel, or any kind of mid-tone metallic tone. And with this, it's just a simple edge highlighting. Again, it's a little bit of repeating ourselves here in these videos, but I did want to show, kind of bringing this guy to some sort of completion, just so that you guys can, make an opinion of your own as far as what kind of effect you like. And here you can see it just as fast and easy as that, just kind of moving along and just catching the high points. Again, it's nothing groundbreaking here, but again, it's just moving through the process of just getting these little edges down and everything like that. So once all that's laid out, we're going to jump into some Wraith Bone. This is a Citadel base color. Basically this is a really good one for sitting on top of a surface if you're going to go in with some brighter contrast paints, or just simply use this color on its own. And with this, I've thinned it out just with the dampness of the brush, just the residual water in the bristles, just to thin the color out, and then I begin applying it. And I lay down 2 coats onto these surfaces, on the little tassel on his chainsword, his horns, and I forgot about the horn on his shoulder. So anybody out there who's a bit of a completionist, you will notice that I did leave it. I actually didn't notice it until I was done filming this guy. But anywho, after 2 coats, we're ready to come in with our next color, which is Skeleton Horde. And this is going to be it would be for the horns and the horn on his shoulder, but we're just going to do it on his horns. And with this, I just grab a fairly generous amount and begin moving it on the horn. So really, it's just kind of drawing the amount of paint into the bristles, and then just simply moving it across the horns themselves, letting it do its thing by building up in those little shallow points, or the recesses in the horns, so that you get those nice deep tones. So you do have to apply a fairly generous amount, but because it's so thin, when it dries out, it's just fine. Glyphhound Orange is next, and this is just for the tassel as well as the eyeball. I just decided that we're just going to use this. Basically what I did is I laid the Wraith Bone inside the eye, and then now I'm just hitting it with the Glyphhound Orange and just letting that sit. Now I did hit some parts of the helmet with the bone and the eyeballs, so I just simply come in and clean those up. Here I'm just demonstrating that I've cleared off the contact points where the peg on the back meets up with the backpack. A little bit of plastic cement on there, so it gives you a nice good strong bond there. Give it a few moments and away we go. And that is it. That is another look at the Alpha Legion, and more importantly, we're looking at Twin Suns here from TurboDork, because this is a color that can be used for these Alpha Legions, and I think it's kind of fun, so I've demonstrated both ways just for you guys. Big thank you to all my patrons. Without their support, these videos would not be possible. If you're considering Patreon support, click the link in the description below. There are varying tiers of support and early access to tutorials. Take care of those brushes, and they will take care of you.